Laura Holyoke back at you again for the part 2 covering the syllabus and then giving you a brief overview of each of the lenses that we will be talking about this semester. I've chosen the movie The Devil Wears Prada. I found that this movie works pretty well in terms of applying the lenses. I have a copy of the video of the DVD, not really the video, if you would like to borrow it, and I think it's pretty easy to get a hold of. I encourage you to watch it early on in the semester, and that way as we work with through the lenses that you can, in your discussion groups, talk about how it applies to OD. Your final assignment for this semester will be a lens application paper. For this paper, you will use The Devil Wears Prada and identify issues as they pertain to each one of the lenses. You'll do an overall introduction to the paper and then introduction to the frames and lenses and reframing, what that means, and how you're going to apply them in the paper. And then for each frame and lens, you'll introduce how it can be applied in organizations. You'll identify a situation or issue from the movie and apply the lens or explain or inform what is happening. So this is where the content pieces, as you go through your annotated content notes, these should be able to easily transfer from your content notes to the final lens paper. I will give you more information as we go on this final paper, but I just wanted to give you a quick overview. If you want to see an example of how to apply each one of the lenses to a situation, check out chapter 20 in your Bowman and Deal text. This will be a scholarly assignment. We'll use APA format 6th edition, and your paper should not exceed 20 pages with the references included. I find that most people can complete the assignment really well in about 15 pages of writing. Some people take a little bit more, but not a whole lot less because of the amount of information that you need to cover. Our goal overall in how I'm covering or how I'm teaching organization development is to develop skills of seeing through multiple lenses. This is called reframing. It's what Bowman and Deal call reframing. And it's to understand and use multiple perspectives to think about the same thing in more than one way. So organizational issues remain the same. How we view them is what changes. When I learned about the lenses and how to apply them, it helped me realize that I was not the crazy one in my organization, that the crazy was really going on everywhere around me. Hopefully, you don't feel like the crazy one, but hopefully just in looking at the lenses, it will help you understand what's going on in your organization. So the first lens that we'll talk about is a structural lens, and this lens actually removes all the people from organizations. It looks at the non-human aspects. The metaphors for structure include a blueprint. It may be a design. It's the architecture in which the organization is built, the framework, the linkages, and the foundation. So you can see as we talk about the structural lens, it'll be about making sure that the organization is built the way it should be built for whatever it is that it's producing. So more on that in a couple weeks. Elements of structural elements include the goals, outcomes, vision, and mission of the organization, and then how labor is divided, how decisions are made within the organization, and then control systems and how these link to the structural lens, how they can provide conflict. That shouldn't say provide. How they may be issues in an organization. Let me say it that way. As well as resources also relates to the structural lens in terms of money, the information, how it gets shared, skills that people have, or the skills that are needed in order to carry out the purpose of the organization, time, calendars, and schedules. Again, 2 more weeks, and we'll talk more about that. The second lens, Bowman and Deal call the human resource lens, I also include and call it the trifocal lens for this reason. In looking at human resources lens, I look through it in 3 different ways. The first one is personal. This is human beings, people in organizations, how they work, what is similar, what is different about them. Getting along is really important. And then most of us work in groups or teams, departments in organizations. And so the second part of this lens is looking at the family, if you will, within an organization, or the family as an organization, and then groups within the organization. Finally, the third part of this trifocal lens is a medical, clinical, organismic perspective, as you will. So it looks at the organization as it is a living organism, just like individual people. That we are living organisms built. We have systems within us. So the trifocal lens pulls ideas from psychology. It sees the organization's function, much like an extended family. And if you think about it, we spend a lot of time in our organizations and working. Sometimes we spend more time there than we do with our family. Also, it looks at how people are regarded and interact within groups and within the organization. It looks at personal characteristics of individuals, of groups, and their effects on organizations. And then finally, it looks at organization as if it were a person. So just like individuals, organizations can get sick. Organizations can be paranoid. Organizations may be crisis prone. So almost any sort of, I can't even think of the word now, diagnosis for an individual can also be applied to an organization, almost. The next lens that we'll look at is through a political view, and this is really the phenomenon of competing interests. A lot of times the word political gets the word power attached to it, and that is true. However, if Bowman and Deal really introduce it to us as we tend to use power because we have specific interests. We have our own personal interests. We have our group's interests that we work, where we work in an organization. We have that organization's interest in mind. And when our interest collides with other people's, that's when we have a political issue. And what plays quite heavily in this view is the role of competing, that is scarce resources. Creates lots of problems. Finally, we'll look at organizations through a cultural view. This focuses on issues of meaning and faith within an organization. That is, when you work in an organization, you realize what has meaning in that organization and what really doesn't mean anything. And that when something has meaning, you understand, once you understand the culture, you understand what it means. Culture in organizations equates to personalities in individuals. So when you go to think about a culture and changing a culture, then think about changing your personality as an individual and what that takes. So I don't have any more on the lenses. I just wanted to give you a quick overview. For each lens, I will also do a recorded PowerPoint. I'll introduce to you some new concepts, some concepts that Bowman and Deal don't cover, as well as concepts that Bowman and Deal do cover. I've been teaching for 28 years. This is my 18th year at the University of Idaho. I still can't read minds. I think, I hate to say this, but I make up stuff in my head, or I just think that I've done things in class or said things when I really haven't. If that is true, please let me know. I really appreciate that and want this to be a great learning semester. Thanks so much.